Have you noticed how at some point in the watercolor journey, the holy grail shifts from mastering all the techniques and paint comfortably to making the art look fresh, light, and vibrant, but still detailed enough that it looks realistic? The problem is that with some amount of realism, it's really easy to end up with paintings that feel dull and overworked. That's why in this video, I want to share how I use 4 specific techniques to make sure that this doesn't happen as often anymore. And if you think that I'm talking about preserving whites, you'll see that there's a lot more to it than just that. Hi, I'm Françoise. Welcome back to my channel. A smart watercolor palette will be the way to start, and the first thing I do is spot one of the main colors in my reference and see how from this one I can find a few other ones that allow me to mix all the colors in the photo and still end up with a very limited palette. So let me explain how this color picking technique actually works. Here, for example, I see that blue stands out for the background. And I know I better pick one in my paint set that is bright because it's going to be easy to make it darker or muted, just tone down its intensity. When if you already start with dark colors or muted ones, it's going to be a lot harder to have any leverage on them. And to me, that is really the first step to make sure that your painting has a chance to look bright and not end up looking all dull or gloomy. And that's exactly why I picked ultramarine blue here. It's a pretty vibrant color, but since a bright painting doesn't necessarily need to be flashy in color either, I also added indigo to contrast with it to tone it down in places. And notice how the blue I'm getting when I mix both of them even matches the photo. The flower looks white, but when you look closely, there are other colors there. That's why I went for the color quinacridone red. And I know it's more of a pink color than a red one, despite the name, and mixed with water, it turns into a softer pink. And add a bright yellow to that, like my Indian yellow here, and we get orange. And I think that this is the main color in this flower, so to me it's a great pick. Now here's the important part, because you know it, you hear it all the time, that it's better to work from a limited palette of 3 to 5 colors. That's what everybody says, and I actually agree with it. It helps in keeping some color harmony in your painting, and it just helps you focus on what you're doing rather than trying to juggle a bunch of colors. The thing is that it's going to be even better if you try and get the primaries to be in your color palette, because from those 3, it's going to be very easy to mix anything that you want. It's the case for purple, and from what I'm seeing, it's visible in the shadowy parts in the petals, in the left and bottom of the flower, and it's an easy color to mix from the ultramarine blue and the quinacridone red colors. Same with green, except that this time I'm going to be using Indian yellow and ultramarine blue. And when I mentioned these specific colors, ultramarine blue, quinacridone red, and Indian yellow, it's just an example. You could use any blue, any red or pink color, and any yellow, and still get similar results. You could do that from a very basic 12 color set also if you wanted to. And a cool thing about working with the primaries is that together they make what some would call mud, but here I'll call it brown because that's convenient. Because I see this color in the flower, in the parts with the most shadow. Also, with a color like blue, you can make any other color look a lot darker. And here I've added indigo to my palette, so it's even better because it's even darker than ultramarine blue. And you can see here how this adds contrast to what started as a plain blue background. Ultramarine helps with keeping it look bright, and indigo brings the brightness out even better by adding contrast. When you pick colors and you want your painting to look bright, I think it's also important to mention that yes, of course, the quantity of paint is going to matter a little bit, but really not that much. Same for the intensity. For example, I never ever look at whether my paint is opaque, transparent, semi-opaque to be honest, and I still get great results. Maybe that's going to be helpful for very advanced techniques and paintings, but I think that for most people in beginner, intermediate stages, it's really not something that's going to add a lot to your process. I think the best is to stick to a few colors and start out with diluted paints so they stay transparent to begin with at least, and build up the values little by little at contrast with mixes that are going to get more and more pigmented with paint as you go. So the more you paint, the less water there will be in your mixes. And there's also paper quality where a color is not going to look the same if you use this paper or that paper. As you know, natural paper white highlights are not everything, but they're still important to how bright the painting will look in the end. And I used to be a big fan of white gouache. I would use it in almost all of my paintings. I've tried to stay away from it a little bit more and try to leverage the natural white highlights a little better, because if you use it well, I mean, it can make a painting look great, but it can also easily dull the vibrancy of a color in a painting. So white gouache might be good in some cases, but not always. In this specific painting, I chose to contour the flower because I always look for the fastest way to paint, being a little bit lazy. So that's why I didn't use my masking fluid here. Now we have a bright white flower that pops up the page. But a problem with thinking that preserving whites is a must is that sometimes we forget how flat and unnatural that looks, and we can see it here. So of course the trick is to add some paint and try and keep some of the areas in the painting paper white, but have them melt into the rest of the colors. And what I mean by that is that you want to try and build a soft transition between a painted area and a paint-free area. And I'm really talking from a realistic watercolor point of view. And to achieve that effect, the technique that I use is to soften edges with a clean and damp paintbrush whenever I add paint to a white part. And look at how soft the transitions are between white parts and painted parts. In the background, I was painting on wet, so it was an easier effect to achieve. But since on wet the paper does dry fast, the challenge is to remember and leave some whites if possible, and if applicable to the painting you're working on. Now you can see that the paint is light, the edges in the flower are also soft, lots of white parts have been preserved, and proof that that is not enough is that it's still pretty flat. We need some contrast to bring the white parts out a lot more. That's what a lot of people are missing, even though this colorful blue background already does a great job with that. And that's why one of my favorite techniques with watercolor is layering. And that term sounds pretty boring. It can even sound like it's going to take a long time to layer, but it's not the case with watercolors. Make sure first that the base layer is fully dry. Here is the flower, since my background is already done. And on a second layer like this one, that we get by layering more paint on top of the base layer, the logical way to go would be to either introduce darker colors or just add paint to the existing mix of paint if you're doing something more monochromatic, to make that mix thicker and make the paint look darker, more opaque. Here I chose to introduce a darker color, and I introduced purple to add all the shadows to the left part of the flower. For realism and soft transitions, again, I think it's really key to not be afraid and overlap colors, overlap layers, if you will. And I'm glad that my base was orange and not yellow, otherwise this might have turned into a greenish color, and I know that's not the topic of today's video, but it's the kind of detail that you'll learn to remember when you paint, because I think we all have it happen a few times where layering paints lead to a color that we were not expecting. You can see here now that I'm working with a brownish mix that I get from the primaries, and it's thicker than previous mixes on purpose because I added more pigment to it, less water, and because these are some of the deepest shadows that I'm painting right now, and I want them to show, to make those white parts nearby pop. And as you can see, it's not just adding brightness to the painting and making those bright areas stand out, it's also building a 3D effect, building realism. And that depth that we're adding to the painting, it's important to make it look bright. So when you think about it, it's just a matter of balance. This is all about adding the right amount of shadow to bring out the light parts more. And I overdo that part sometimes. I tend to make my paintings a little dark. So my best advice here is to take it step by step. I try to do that also. If you feel like you don't know what you're doing right now with layering on top of a base layer, what I would do is start out with colors that are just a bit stronger than the base. It will take a little bit longer to do, but at least you're going step by step. Then you stop and you come back to it later and you see how that looks on a first impression. And then you decide if you want to add more paint or not. And over time, you will find out about your own weaknesses as you keep painting. You'll be made aware of them little by little, and you'll find a way to fix it. And then you'll improve. The thing is that sometimes there are plateaus in watercolor painting, like everything, I guess, where it feels like we're not improving. And in those moments where I feel like I'm not doing a good job, I just go look at other artists' photos, and a little trick is to zoom on their art. And there you'll notice that it's far from perfect. There are a lot of little things that you would have done differently, or that just, jump to your eyes a little bit more than when you were just looking at the whole painting. Before we move on to the fourth technique, let me introduce you to my Patreon, where I share all my tutorials, including this one, in real time and voiceover. And I'll teach you all my techniques there step by step, no filter. And if you'd like to join, I'll add a link to it to the description of the video. I love to use the glazing technique in my paintings, not all of them, because it's that little trick that can turn a dull painting into a vibrant one in seconds. It's not going to be as visible here in this painting because it's not dull. It already looks great. It could even be called finished. But I decided that I would want to add a touch of my brightest color, and that's why I'm glazing yellow, which means I just apply it on dry paper over the top of my base and first layers in chosen areas. And that's where watercolors really shine here with their transparency properties. And when I do this, I like to use a light mix, one with a good amount of water, not too watery, but not thick enough. Then you can try it with a thicker mix if you want it to show more, although I'd recommend to stick to just a few areas in the painting if you do that, just to bring emphasis to some specific spots. And despite the fact that I think that a bright color will look nice on this flower, a big reason for me to do this is also because of the background. The complementary color to blue is orange. It's the one opposite to it on the color wheel. And both of these colors being opposite on that wheel means that they're a fantastic match visually speaking. They're eye-catching and they contrast very well. Think about paintings or photos that are red and green or purple and yellow, something like that. So here my flower was very pale before. The background wasn't doing enough for it. And since this warm yellow is close to an orange color, it helps with the overall brightness of the whole piece. And I actually do think that, of course, yes, that flower doesn't look as white as it did before, but it works a lot better now with that background being a little more on the yellow side. So please let me know below what your main takeaway is here and how that has helped. It also helps this channel grow a bit more each day and reach more of the watercolor community. And if you're looking for more help and inspiration from me, this popular video right here will teach you all I know about creating natural paper white highlights for realistic painting. So thank you so much for watching and see you next time.